What if Spider-Man joined the X-Men? Imagine a Sentinel, a giant, skyscraper-sized killing machine, aiming its lasers at a group of terrified teenagers. But before it can fire, a web hits its optic sensor, and a voice cracks through the coms. "Hey, big guy, ever tried being a little less metal? This isn't the Spider-Man you know? This is an X-Man." We all know the story. Peter Parker's journey was forged in tragedy and guilt, defined by the lesson that great power comes with great responsibility. But in another universe, that power doesn't lead to isolation. Instead, it acts like a beacon. Instead of a solo career built on atonement, Peter Parker is recruited by Professor Charles Xavier. He doesn't just get a training regimen, he gets a family. But with that family comes their struggle, a global conflict far bigger than any one friendly neighborhood. This is the story of how Spider-Man joining the X-Men would have changed, well, everything. Our story splits right at the beginning, in the chaotic, terrifying moments after the spider bite. Imagine a 15-year-old Peter Parker, his body on fire with a radioactive fever, his senses screaming with information he can't process. But this time, he isn't left to stumble through it all by himself. Before he even thinks about sewing a wrestling costume, his new powers flare up like a psychic supernova. Miles away in Westchester, the world's most powerful telepath feels it. It's not the birth of a mutant, but a cry of pure anguish from a uniquely gifted person on the verge of breaking. Professor Charles Xavier, always a shepherd to lost, superpowered souls, doesn't waste a second. He finds Peter not in some dusty gym, but in his bedroom in Queens, curled into a ball. Terrified of the world he can suddenly hear, see, and feel in excruciating detail. A worried Aunt May opens the door to a calm, reassuring man in a wheelchair. Xavier doesn't talk about a school for mutants. He talks about a place for the gifted, a safe harbor. He explains that Peter isn't a freak, but he is in danger and needs guidance to gain control. For a kid who's just lost his parents and now feels like his own body is betraying him, this offer is a lifeline. After the tragic death of his Uncle Ben, a grief now shared with Xavier and his new team, Peter's mantra of power and responsibility takes on a whole new meaning. It's not about atoning for one mistake anymore. It's about accepting a collective duty. He agrees to go to the Xavier Institute, not just to train, but to finally belong. Peter's integration into the X-Men is noisy, is an immediate anomaly. See, he's a mutate, not a mutant. He wasn't born with the X gene, which creates a subtle barrier. To someone like the fiercely proud Scott Summers, Peter is an outsider twice over. But to others, he's a revelation. First, there's the intellectual connection beast. Their late-night lab sessions become legendary, leading to upgraded danger room protocols, better stealth tech for the Blackbird, and most importantly, a new web fluid that can temporarily neutralize other mutant abilities. It's a game-changing, non-lethal tool. Then, the social lifeline. Iceman and Nightcrawler. The three of them become the resident pranksters. With their friendly one-upmanship, a source of constant entertainment and occasional property damage. He and Kurt Wagner and Nightcrawler become kindred spirits, both acrobatic, good-hearted guys who use humor to hide their pain and that feeling of being an outsider. But it's his dynamic with the team's leaders that really defines his new path. Jean Grey's telepathy gives Peter something he's never experienced, a quiet mind. She helps him build psychic walls, turning the overwhelming static of his spider sense into a focused, razor-sharp, tactical advantage. His relationship with Cyclops, though, is a bit more complicated. Scott sees Peter's improv style as reckless, clashing with his own disciplined approach. But in the heat of battle, he can't argue with the results. And finally, the hard truths. Wolverine. Logan writes Peter off at first as just another idealistic kid. But Logan respects grit, and Peter has it in spades. They don't bond in a classroom. They bond in the danger room, where Logan's brutal training pushes Peter past every limit he thought he had. Wolverine teaches him how to fight like a survivor. In return, Peter's relentless optimism and non-stop quips slowly start to wear down Logan's tough guy exterior. Right away, Spider-Man's presence completely changes the game for the X-Men. During their first showdown with Magneto, that non-metallic webbing proves to be the perfect weapon, gumming up the master of magnetism's helmet and armor. The spider sense gives the team precious seconds of warning against sneak attacks. turning what should have been devastating losses into nail-biter victories. The world starts to notice. The story isn't just about feared and hated mutants anymore. There's a human, a wisecracking kid from Queens, fighting right alongside them. This throws a massive wrench in the works for anti-mutant fanatics. How can you paint all-powered people as the enemy when one of the world's most amazing new heroes is their biggest defender? J. Jonah Jameson's crusade against Spider-Man becomes even more unhinged. It doesn't just call him a menace, it calls him a traitor to his own kind. Spider-Man, mutant lover, the Daily Bugle headlines scream. But this time, Peter, armed with PR training from the Xavier Institute, handles it differently. He does a televised interview, mask off, and defends his family. They're not freaks, he says, his voice steady. They're people. They saved me. The only difference between us is how we got our powers, the responsibility that comes with them. That's exactly the same. The speech goes viral, making Peter the public face of human-mutant cooperation. But here's the trade-off. This new path means the Peter Parker we know is gone. He never goes to Empire State University. He never gets a job at the Daily Bugle. Gwen Stacy, Mary Jane Watson. In this reality, he never even meets them. His entire world is the Institute, and his great loves and losses are now tied to the fate of his teammates. This forges a more focused, maybe even more militant, Peter Parker. After all, the constant threat of genocide is a world away from stopping snatches. But wait, that makes me think, what if Norman Osborn never becomes the Goblin? Does he become something even worse? A political leader using anti-mutant sentiment to rise to power. Let me know in the comments below, and I will get to as many as possible. Now, the biggest change, however, comes when the Sentinels attack. Bolivar Trask's giant robots are programmed to hunt the X gene. They don't even register Peter as a threat. This is a fatal mistake. To their targeting systems, Spider-Man is a ghost. He moves through a squad of Sentinels like a phantom, webbing up their joints, blinding their optics, and using his scientific mind to diagnose their weaknesses on the fly. He becomes a living instruction manual on how to dismantle Sentinels, turning a potential massacre into a stunning victory for mutants. Years pass. Peter Parker isn't a boy anymore. He's a veteran leader and a pillar of the X-Men. His quippy hero is still in there, but his humor is sharper now. A tool to disarm enemies and boost morale when things look darkest. He never became the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. His neighborhood became the entire planet, and his responsibility was to an entire species. He colds a new X-Men team with Cyclops, their old rivalry having cooled into a deep, mutual respect. Scott plans the grand strategy. Peter masterminds the tactical improvisation. Together, they're almost unbeatable, and the ripple effects just keep spreading. Think about it. Without a solo Spidey in New York, does the Green Goblin ever become such a personal menace? Norman Osborn might have just stayed a corrupt businessman, his madness never finding its spider-themed calling. The Sinister Six is never formed. The entire street-level landscape of New York City is completely different. In this timeline, Peter Parker gets a family from day one, gets support, structure, and a cause bigger than himself. But he also loses a piece of his ordinary life. He never knows the simple joys and heartbreaks of just being Peter. His world is a constant battle for the right to exist. He's more powerful, more effective, and maybe even a greater hero in the grand scheme. But is he happier? He stands on a balcony at the Xavier Institute, watching a new generation of students, mutants and mutates alike, playing on the lawn. He found his place. He found his family. He fulfilled his responsibility. And in this universe, that was more than enough. So I have to ask, was this a promotion or a prison? Did Peter gain a family, or did he lose his soul to a war that was never his to fight? Let me know in the comments. Let's debate.